Well, good day there, everybody. This is Joe Van Cleve. Welcome to a little kind of a cool, breezy day out on my front porch. I was sitting out here a little bit ago, and I took out my brother-made Webster XL-747 typewriter. I wanted to just type up some random stuff, you know, go out and enjoy a nice day after some weather we had yesterday, a nice day typing. And one of the things that happened with this typewriter I started to notice, well, it's been happening for a long time, is the touch on the typewriter has really felt really heavy. Everything about this beautiful robin's egg blue typewriter I really love. I like the build quality. I kind of like the design of and the craftsmanship of the mechanism in these Brother typewriters. I really kind of like it, but the one thing about this one is the touch has always been heavy, and I noticed specifically the touch selector here on the left side of the keyboard has never done anything. Like, regardless of how you set it, it always has the same heavy touch. And I got to thinking today, you know, that's probably a clue to the problem. So let's head out to my workshop in the garage and see if I can tackle this, huh? Okay, well, here is the little Brother Webster, and I have the body panels taken off of it. It's pretty easy to take apart. There's 4 shoulder bolts for the bottom and just about 6 other tiny screws, and everything comes apart pretty easily. Here's the chassis. I like to work on the typewriter on an old towel to pad it, and then when I'm operating it, I use a couple thin pieces of wood to prop up the bottom so the linkages don't hang up on the towel. Okay, the primary symptom I noted about the typewriter is the stiffness of the keys would not change regardless of the setting of the touch adjuster. It just felt the same stiffness all the time. And so that led me to looking at the touch adjustment and what it actually does. And to see that, we have to flip the machine upside down. Now, almost all of these manual typewriters use some form of what's called a universal bar, which is common functions that have to happen with every keystroke. In this particular universal bar method is the type bar, when it's being pressed down, it pushes down this bar. And that bar rotates or pivots on 2 points. It rotates on this pivot point, and there's an equivalent one on the other side. And then there's like linkages, like this linkage here goes to the right ribbon spool mechanism, and there's an equivalent linkage right here going to the left ribbon spool that advances the ribbons. What the touch selector does is, as you adjust the touch selector for increased tension, there is a spring right here that is pulling on this side of that universal bar. And it's just making the universal bar a little harder to move. And so it came to me that anything else in this mechanism that is affecting the motion of the universal bar would have the same effect of making it a heavier touch. And so let's look at some of the things that the universal bar is connected to. Well, on the left side, there is this linkage that is pushing down and operating that white plastic gear right down here that is doing the ratcheting of the advancement of the left ribbon spool. And similarly, on the right side, it has a linkage right here, that little crooked bar, that's also advancing the right ribbon spool. So if there's any hang up going on in this little pivot point right here, and the equivalent pivot point on the left side here, underneath that plastic gear, any of those things will cause the feel of the machine to be a lot heavier. Now, there's also other pivot points. So the right side of the universal bar is pivoting on this little protruding bar. And so any of these little bushings here, any of those pivot points that are tight, would also cause it to hang up, in the same way with the left side right here. Anything that causes it to hang up will cause it to be more stiff. Now, along with the ribbon spool advancement mechanism, the keys, the action of the type bars also lifts up the ribbon vibrator in either of the bichrome settings. And so if the ribbon vibrator was causing the stiffness in the keys, it should go away when you put it in the middle stencil position, but that's not the case. It doesn't matter whether it's in the stencil or not. It has the same feel to it, so I know that it's not caused by the ribbon vibrator. And so I'm thinking that the problem is going to be related to the mechanism that drives these ribbon spools. And so for me to find out, I'm going to pull off this E-clip and pull off this sprocket gear on either side and see what I have underneath it. And sure enough, what I found was there are two screws. There's this one and especially this one down here. I loosened them up and I squirted alcohol in there and worked it back and forth, worked the keys, and also put in some naphtha, which is real light oil, and repeatedly with naphtha and isopropyl alcohol, cotton swabs, and mascara brush on this side and the equivalent ones on the right side spool mechanism. And now I definitely have a distinctive difference in feel when the touch selector is at the light setting. It feels really light now, and when it's at the heavy setting, it is noticeably heavier. And so I attribute this problem to a buildup of gunk and sludge underneath these shoulder bolts here where this pivot point is for the ribbon take-up, this little arm that pivots here. And of course I tried to clean all the little linkages and parts out as best as I could. All this here and everything else. And cleaned up the old ink in the guides here for the auto reverse and everything, and I did the same over here. I also cleaned up this shaft real good, degreased it and lubricated it, and now these sprockets turn real freely. They freewheel quite nicely, even with the E-clips reinstalled. And the same way with the other one. So now I'm going to put it all together and put a ribbon on it and see how it feels. Okay, so my color selector's on the black. I have the light touch here. Let's see how it feels. Oh yeah. Wow, that really feels so much different. And it has a pretty dark imprint. So I've also put a little bit of alcohol with my mascara brush, putting alcohol down in the slots of the segments and working them, and underneath the other parts of the type bar linkages, cleaning them up a little bit. And so I'm pretty happy with it. Definitely there is a noticeable difference between the light touch and heavy touch. Wow, there is a difference. Amazing. So to put the machine's panels back together, you start with the side panels, and they simply fit on like that. And you have a screw here with a washer and a screw in the back here. The left panel goes on the same. Then the bottom panel goes on. It has 4 shoulder bolts for the feet and then 2 screws in the back. And then the ribbon cover pops on. That's all there is to it. Okay, so I have this screw here with a washer put on. It's loose still. And the one in the back panel right here, and it's also loose, and that gives me room to adjust this to make it fit the bottom panel as well. And I have the left side on as well loosely. Now this is a good time to mention that the grommets, these rubber grommets, interlock with the 2 protrusion pins on the underside of the ribbon cover to secure the ribbon cover. And if yours has these grommets rotted out, you can go to the hardware store and replace them with new black Viton rubber grommets, and it works just fine as a replacement. So let me flip it over and put the back on, or the bottom on. So here's the bottom of the machine. This back panel goes down behind the bottom of the machine, and to get this on right, it helps to get the front piece on below the space bar first, and then the back sits on it fine. And then you get the holes lined up down here in the feet for your shoulder bolts that fit down into each foot. And this is the reason why you wanted to leave the side panels loose, so you can get those holes to line up with the holes in the bottom panel. And don't tighten up anything until you have all the bolts in place. And then around back, there's going to be 2 tiny screws that go here and here, and we'll put those on now. And now I can get these screws tightened up. I can push the side panel against this gap and try to close up that gap and get all the other screws tight. And then finally on top, the two adjacent to the ribbon cover. And last but not least is the ribbon cover itself. Ta-da! Definitely is lighter touch than it was before, and I really like that. Now this machine feels much better. You know, I've always liked this little Brother machine. I like it for the looks, you know, and the color especially, and the compactness, and the overall build quality I'm pretty impressed with. The metal, the grade of metals and stuff is pretty good in these machines, I think. But now that I have this touch issue figured out, where it is noticeably lighter, it really changes my overall opinion about this machine. All of a sudden now this moves itself up higher in the ranking of my typewriter collection, and I'm happy about that. So the lesson for you guys maybe is don't be afraid to tackle those little problems that have been nagging you about your typewriters. Who knows, in doing so you might actually make it better, and you might be happier with your machines. Well, I'm going to sit here and type up some ideas, and for you guys, I hope you have yourselves a great day.